We're back with our panel. Molly Hemingway, senior editor at The Federalist, Mo Elleithee, executive director of the Georgetown Institute of Politics, and former CIA analyst and syndicated radio host Buck Sexton. We welcome Buck to the panel. Buck, the president tweeted right after the report came out a picture, and here it is, game over. He later talked about that, no collusion, no obstruction. Your thoughts on this release and what it means?
Well, at least he's out of criminal jeopardy. So in that sense, game over is appropriate. But I would just say this, we were promised a lot here by the media, most of the media, for 2 years, and that has not been delivered at all. We were promised that there was going to be some moment, the smoking gun moment, where we'd see this smoking gun effort to show collusion with Russia, and it just never materialized. And I would just say that this is a presidency that was unfairly maligned and boxed into a corner, and now when it's fighting out of that corner, has been fighting out of that corner because it was imperfect in that process, we're being told that we're supposed to condemn them. I mean, it's ridiculous at this point. And I think that what Mueller did on obstruction just shows that there were political considerations that were taken into account all along that the special counsel was looking at. So, I mean, I think the president, it's a good day for him, there's no question, because he's not facing criminal charges. But now we're going to get into the congressional obstruction game, and I think the Democrats are going to run with this.
If you looked at the report, Mo, the redactions were not that extensive. Very few redactions in the second part. The first part had some that various notes about it, about grand jury testimony, about classified information. Yet there was all this fight about we didn't get the unredacted version. Still a fight.
Yeah, and I think that's the wrong thing to focus on, right? If I'm a Democrat on the Hill, there's plenty of other things here to focus on, and they will get to see the report, the full unredacted report, one would hope. It is this issue of obstruction, though, that I think is going to continue to hang over the president, and that Democrats are going to
last a while.
Focus
Molly,
on.
Your thoughts wrapping up today?
Well, the obstruction issue, again, I think is interesting because it is the bulk of the report, or it's, I think, a majority of the report focuses on that. What's deeply concerning about it is that Mueller sort of changed the standard. So the standard normally is that you're innocent until the government proves your guilt. And in his section on obstruction, he basically says that Trump is guilty and he can't prove his innocence. That is a very dangerous standard to put for someone. If he thinks he has the goods on him, he should have charged him. He didn't have the goods. He didn't charge him. People are free to make much hay out of this. But again, I think the American people tolerated the Russia investigation and all of the mess that caused. The idea that they will now be tolerant of an obstruction probe seems to not understand. This was an attack on not just the president, as Buck says, but the people who elected him.
The Democrats had a problem with when Jim Comey did it with Hillary Clinton that way.
And rightly should have.
We're going to have final thoughts from the panel after a quick break. We had a lot to get in this panel. We have some final thoughts now. Buck.
Russia collusion was a fairy tale without real evidence. Obstruction is a stretch, and one that's already become highly politicized by people who don't like the president. And ultimately, this was an attempt by the media, the Democrats, and some people in senior reaches of government to try to undo the election. I think we're clear now that that's where the evidence has taken us, and people should accept that, including folks in the media today who were patting themselves on the back when they should be doing a whole lot of soul searching instead.
Mo.
We learned a couple of things in this report. One, validated that the Russians did try to interfere in this election to benefit Donald Trump. The Trump campaign knew about it in real time and thought it would benefit them. Number two, that there are still a lot of questions about obstruction. Mueller didn't feel he could indict, but he pointed a lot of smoke at it. The question now becomes, it may not have risen to the level of criminality, but is he okay? Are the American people okay with it? There are going to be a lot of people who say, fine, no big deal, but there are going to be just as many people, I think, who are worried of some real problems.
Politically, for Democrats, are they worried about going down that road? Molly.
It is impossible to read this report and come up with any other idea than that the people who worked on it were desperate to get Trump and that they failed. It's evident in what they included, how they wrote up what they included, and also what they left out. Every little thing is hyped. Literally who tweeted what that might have been related to a Russian when it comes to the Trump campaign. It's very melodramatic, and then it always ends with nothing, a lot of sound and fury signifying nothing. But it also leaves out what we still need to know, which is how this Russian narrative ever got infected into our system of government. And so we need to find that out so that we can make sure that opposition research from a hostile political campaign isn't used to undermine an administration like it was here.
All right, panel, nice job fitting it all in.